السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين، لا سيما بقية الله في العالمين، روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. So alhamdulillah for another opportunity to talk about the two concepts of haya and iffa. In two sessions I tried to explain the concept of haya, which is translated into shame and modesty. And because this is the last session on these series of discussions, so today I just talk about the concept of iffa or chastity, and I just refer to some general guidelines regarding the concept of iffa or chastity. And then inshallah, as you as teachers, as mothers, as spouses, sisters, inshallah you can teach other people. So the concept of iffa in the Quran and in the narrations is mainly about two issues. They are called iffatul batin, iffatul farj, which means chastity regarding one's stomach, meaning regarding what we eat, what we drink, and about sexual desires. Quickly, I would like to refer to some verses of the Quran about the concept of iffa or chastity. Chapter Al-Ahzab, chapter 33, verse 35. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وَالْحَافِظِينَ فُرُوجَهُمْ وَالْحَافِظَاتِ. The men who practice chastity, or as the translation reads, the men who guard their private parts, وَالْحَافِظَاتِ, and the women who practice chastity. وَالذَّاكِرِينَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا وَالذَّاكِرَاتِ, the men who remember Allah greatly, and the women who remember Allah greatly. أَعَدَّ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةً وَأَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. Allah holds in store for them forgiveness and a great reward. Now, one of the important topics in many societies is the fact that we have the problem of unmarried youth, boys and girls. So one of the best ways for practicing iffa or chastity is for the youth to get married as soon as possible. As parents, as believers, we need to facilitate. There are many narrations about the significance of helping the single people to get married. The Quran is specifically about this group of people, the unmarried people who are not able to get married because of financial problems. Quran said in chapter An-Nur, verse 33, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وَلْيَسْتَعْفِفِ الَّذِينَ لَا يَجِدُونَ نِكَاحًا حَتَّى يُغْنِيَهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. So this is one of the verses in which the concept of iffa has been specifically mentioned. وَلْيَسْتَعْفِفْ means that they should practice iffa or chastity. Who? الَّذِينَ لَا يَجِدُونَ نِكَاحًا, those who cannot afford marriage. So they should practice chastity حَتَّى يُغْنِيَهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ, until Allah enriches them out of His grace. I don't have time to refer to narrations under this verse. You can find various narrations about the significance of helping people, helping the single people, the single youth to get married. Now, I would like to talk about especially this group of people and how they can practice chastity while they are still single and not married. and then I will go to other cases inshallah if we have time. As I mentioned, you can use these guidelines for your students later inshallah, for your children and friends. So there are some theoretical solutions. I don't want to go into this part, like piety, faith, having self-esteem, controlling one's thought. This is in need of a separate discussion. But when it comes to some practical instructions, I would like to refer to some 4 or 5 points based on the Quran and the narrations inshallah. So the Quran says that not only for the single people, for all people, married and non-married, it doesn't make any difference. One of the most important practical ways to practice chastity is to control your eyes. And the interesting point about this concept, the importance of controlling one eye, is that the Quran has dedicated 2 verses for this topic. One verse for the men and the next verse for women. I believe that it seems that it is unique in the Quran. In many cases, Quran talks about men and women but together, like al-mu'mineen, al-mu'minat, as-sadiqeen, as-sadiqat, al-dhakirin, al-dhakirat. But here, because of the importance of the concept of iffa and controlling one's eyes, Quran is talking about this issue in 2 separate verses. And maybe one of the reasons is that sometimes women, they imagine that controlling the eyes is only for the men, which is not the case. Chapter Nur, verse 30, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. O Prophet, tell the believers, the men, to lower their gaze. وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ, and to practice chastity. ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ. And the following verse, وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. O Prophet, tell the believers, the females, يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنْ, the same concept, to lower their gaze. وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنْ, and to practice chastity. So there are ways to how we can help to control our eyes. We do not have time to explain. Just as I told you, I'm just referring to some general guidelines. Fasting is a practical way for single people who cannot get married. So it can be one of the practical ways for them to be able to control their desires. In the previous session, I talked about the concept of musharata, muraqaba, and muhasaba. For every spiritual disease, if you are suffering from, we can refer to this concept of muhasabatun nafs. So for example, again, I'm telling you to teach other people. For example, someone is not able to control his or her eyes when it comes to looking at non-mahram or obscene pictures and videos. And when it comes to looking, it's not only obscene videos and pictures. Nowadays we have, bad content as well. Sometimes you just read a story, but still it is against iffa and chastity. So if you are not able to control, one practical way is the concept of muhasaba. I told you, for example, early in the morning, I promised God that today I will take care of my eyes and how I look. So for example, if I'm suffering from looking at non-mahram, in the cases that it is illegal, I say that, okay God, I promise you that today I will not do that. This is musharata, a kind of shart, a kind of condition. And if you want to give it a kind of guarantee, you may say that, okay, if I do so, I will do something. For example, I will recite recite 1 juz Quran, or I will fast the following day, or I will pay this amount of money, which is to some extent difficult, but not very difficult. You cannot say that, okay, I will fast for 1 month, because then it would not work in a practical way. So if a youth, for example, is used to, not controlling his or her eyes, it is very likely that on the first day, he or she is not able to act upon their promise. So during the day, we have the concept of muraqabah. We take care of the actions. And late at night, before going to sleep, we do muhasabah. We think about the actions. And especially regarding the action that we promised God. So we come to realize whether we were able to act upon that promise or not. If we were not able and there was a guarantee, so we need to, for example, recite the Quran or pay some amount of money in charity or fast the following day, which to some extent is difficult. But the next day we repeat the same. It's not going to work all at once. And the third day and the fourth day, so gradually this process of muhasabah, musharata, muraqabah will work. And people, if they are really, decided to leave the scene, they can see the effects of this concept, but they need to be patient. It's not going to work, during 1 day or 1 week, no. But after sometimes, because on a daily basis, they are giving this promise to God. On a daily basis, there is a guarantee, and they see that it's difficult for them, for example, to fast every day. So gradually they take care of their actions. Now, there are some points about nutrition and what we eat and drink. I will explain later. For married people, there are many points to practice chastity. So this concept of heffa is not only for the single people. For married people, it is also of great significance. The narrations tell us a lot about this. Maybe we need to discuss it in other sessions. But just 2 points for couples to be able to practice chastity. The narrations put much emphasis on good dressing and cleanliness, not only for women but also for men. Unfortunately, in many societies, in Muslims, they imagine that it's only the duty of the women to dress well inside the house. No, the narrations also tell the men that if you want your wives to practice chastity, you need to also be clean and, with good dress inside the house. But maybe more emphasis is mentioned for the women. And to express love. This is explicitly mentioned in the narrations that as a wife, as a husband, you need to express your love. This is one of the practical ways to practice chastity. It's not enough to just say that, okay, I love him, I love her. No, you need to utter it. You need to explicitly mention it from time to time. So especially in our day and time, it would be very much influencing in people to be able to practice chastity. Again, it's not only for men, because you may have heard the narrations that if a man tells his wife that I love you, she will not forget. So there are famous narrations, but the same has been mentioned for women and for the wives as well. There is no haya here. I mentioned in the previous session that when it comes to marital life, there is no shame. As couples, no one should feel embarrassed of showing his or her love toward their spouses. Now, what I would like to talk more today is for the parents, there are some instructions to help their children practice chastity. one of the points is the fact that this is about 4 to 5 lines verse in the Quran, and maybe it is surprising. You cannot find such a long verse for many other important issues in the Quran. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dedicated 4 or 5 lines in Quran in chapter An-Nur verse 58 just about one issue which is related to the iffa to be practiced by parents and the children. And this is interesting. This is showing the significance of this topic, and unfortunately many Muslims they ignore this instruction. God has given us a message and signal by dedicating a complete verse about this concept. And that is the fact that, so as parents, if you have a special room in your house, any special place inside the house, you need to teach your children that when they want to enter that room, they need to take permission. And the Quran in 2 verses has referred to all the details. Chapter An-Nur verse 58, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا, O you who have faith, ليستأذنكم الذين ملكت أيمانكم والذين لم يبلغوا الحلم منكم 3 مرات. Your slaves, which is not applicable in our time, وَالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَبْلُغُوا الْحُلُمْ, those who have not yet reached puberty. So first of all, the Quran here distinguishes between our children who have reached the age of puberty and those who have not. For those who have not yet reached the age of puberty, they need to seek your permission 3 times. من قبل صلاة الفجر, before the dawn prayer, وحين تضعون ثيابكم من الظهيرة, and when you put off your garments at noon, ومن بعد صلاة العشاء, and after the night prayer. 3 عورات لكم. These are 3 times of privacy for you. ليس عليكم ولا عليهم جناح بعدهن. Apart from these 3 times, it is not sinful of you and them for to frequent one another freely. طوافون عليكم بعضكم على بعض كذلك يبين الله لكم الآيات والله عليم حكيم. So in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to the children who have not reached the age of puberty. And this is very significant, and many parents may just take it lightly. Quran says that this is not something to be belittled. You need to instruct your children. And the narrations explain more. So what about the children who have reached the age of puberty? The next verse continues, وَإِذَا بَلَغَ الْأَطْفَالَ مِنْكُمْ الْحُلُمْ, when your children reach puberty, فَلْيَسْتَأْذِنُوا كَمَا اسْتَأْذَنَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Then for them, they need to ask permission at all times. It's not only 3 times. Just as those who grew up before them ask permission. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ حَكِيمٌ. So, Quran says that if you want your children to grow up while they are able to practice chastity, one of the important points is that when you have a special room inside the house, for the children who have reached the age of puberty, you need to already instruct them that whenever you want to enter the room, you need to take permission. They need to be taught. More difficult is for the children who have not reached the age of puberty. And it might be more difficult. And what matters here is that what is mentioned in the Quran, those 3 times, can change from one culture to another, from one family to another. So it depends. What matters is that your children who have not reached the age of puberty should be instructed that On certain times, when they want to enter that room, they need to take permission. They need to be instructed. So this is one point. And the second point, that again in some societies this is not paid enough attention, and one of the reasons is that the houses might not be big enough, is that the intimate relationship between wife and husband for sure should be in a place, in a room that the children are not sleeping in the same place, even the infant child. Let's imagine you have infant child of only 1 month. So the narrations tell us that even for a 1 month infant child, it would be harmful for him or her in their future. So if you are going to have an intimate relationship, and if you want your children to be able to practice chastity in future, no one should be in the same place. Even if he or she is your infant child, even if they are asleep. The narrations are very clear in this regard, that even if they are able to hear your breath, it would be harmful for them. So all these instructions are for our children to be able to practice chastity in future. And you see how Quran is referring to all the details, and the narrations refer to more details in this regard, which means that as parents we need to be careful to help our children to be able to practice chastity, and sometimes to prevent premature puberty, which happens a lot in our time and era for different reasons. And of course, the psychology also tells you that as parents, when you are sure that you are in your privacy and there is no child, then there is no anxiety as well, so it would be also effective for that intimate relationship as well. Yes, please.
Sorry, after your lecture, can I recite a poem of hijab?
Sure, why not? Sure. Okay. So my point here is that we shouldn't consider our children as just dolls which do not understand anything, especially in our time. Fortunately or unfortunately, they know, they understand, so we need to take care of that. I told you that the details are mentioned in the narration. Just I share one narration. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ, the Prophet is swearing by God. You know that the Prophet and the Imam, only in very significant cases they used to swear by the name of God. لو أن رجلا غشي امرأته وفي البيت صبي. If a man and woman, they want to have intimate relationship, and inside that place, that room, there is a sabi, there is a child, مستيقظ, he or she is awake, يراهما ويسمع كلامهما ونفسهما. We shouldn't think that, na'udhu billah, the Prophet and the Imams, why they have talked about these issues, which might be, na'udhu billah, which might be a bit impolite. No, this is not the case. This is showing the significance of these issues. So if that child, which might be just few weeks or few months, if he or she is awake and they can see the parents and hear to their words and even their breath, ma aflaha abadan, then we cannot expect that child to reach salvation. So to this extent, the Prophet is telling you that it's important for you to have your privacy away from the sight and hearing of your children. Of course, it doesn't mean that there is no way for the children to reach salvation. It is just referring to the fact that it can be a cause for their deviation in future. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam is told about him that, again, we may be surprised that why these points are mentioned in the narrations. Me myself talking about this narration, I may feel embarrassed, but the narrations are very clear talking about these issues. The narration says about Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, this is in Al-Kafi, volume 5, page 500. The most important collection of hadith, Al-Kafi. كان علي بن الحسين إذا أراد أن يغشى أهله أغلق الباب وأرخى الستور وأخرج الخدم. When Imam Sajjad alayhi salam wanted to have the intimate relation, he closed the door, أرخى الستور, he put on all the curtains, وأخرج الخدم, he asked all the maids and the slaves to leave the house, or at least that place, which means that for sure the children were not present there as well. Going to the next topic, we do not have time. The nutrition, the food and drink of children also matter a lot. Especially I'm talking about the single youth. As parents, we need to be careful about their foods, especially. Of course, this issue comes from the time that as a mother you are pregnant. What you consume, it is very clear, and nowadays it is proved in science that it will lead, lasting effects on the fetus and then on your children. When it comes to the intimate relationships, many details are mentioned in the narrations about for example, the time, about some etiquette. So all these issues, they have effect. And the Quran, in the story of Lady Maryam salamullahi alayha, refers to how the spirit of a mother can influence her child. But anyway, talking about the children who are now, teens or youth, and they are not able to get married. I'm talking about some practical ways to help them practice a hiffa or chastity. So for unmarried boys and girls, of course, as mothers, you need to have a plan for their nutrition. It's not the case that, okay, let me open the refrigerator and to see what I have today and just let me cook. No, it should be based on a plan. Especially for unmarried boys and girls, if you have in your house. I'm talking about the foods which are related to increasing or decreasing sexual desires. So first of all, we need to take care of them receiving enough vitamins, proteins, all the other issues which are, carbohydrates, for example. So this is one point. I'm not belittling this topic. They need to receive all the necessary items that their body needs. But at the same time, even sometimes you may need to have a consultation with an expert of nutrition. So today, for every food, it's been clearly mentioned that whether it is going to increase the sexual desire or decrease the sexual desire. So, based on the religious teachings, when you want to have, healthy family, children who can practice chastity, especially as long as they are single. So as mothers, you need to pay attention to their nutrition, the way, the items that you are going to use for cooking. So you can search and find all the details about different foods, and you can come to a plan that at the end of the day, the food should be delicious enough, The food should contain all the necessary vitamins and proteins, but at the same time, you can plan in a way that it's not going to increase, at least, it's not going to increase the sexual desires of your children. When it comes to buying clothes, again, there are some recommendations. The fabric material sometimes affects whether it is tight or not. Music, it matters, again, for our children to be able to practice chastity. Sorry, I'm just telling you some general guidelines. We do not have enough time. There are some points which are related to family counseling. For example, it's been generally accepted that if you have, for example, daughters and boys, and you have enough rooms, it's better for the girls and the boys to sleep in different rooms and not in the same room. If they have separate rooms, I know I have children that nowadays it is very difficult to control the children, but there are some ways, especially when it comes to them having access to mobile and social media, internet and everything. So to use, for example, parent controlling is a very practical way. You can learn about that, you can search about that. They need to be, especially when they are still teen, you can teach them and you can make it a rule in the house that no one has the right to close the door of their room at night. Of course, for some cases there might be some other concerns. You can think about that. But generally speaking, if you have boys and girls, it's better for them to sleep in different rooms. If you have, for example, two boys, the widespread idea is that it's better for them to be in the same room, because sometimes they feel embarrassed from each other. And as I mentioned, it's preferred for them not to close the doors of the rooms at night. To sleep at night on time is a very good point. But the point is that many times the children go to bed, but still they are fresh, which means that they are going to spend some time with their mobile phone. And this is one of the most dangerous time for them, which means that we need to plan, we need to think for our children, so that when they go to bed at 11, for example, they just fall asleep very soon after that. Sometimes you may plan for some activities in the afternoon or early at night, for example. So they should be tired enough when they go to sleep. They shouldn't be fresh. Otherwise, there might be problems. And at the end of the day, as parents, we do all these measures, which I only refer to very few of them, but don't forget praying for them and do tawassul. The dua of the parents for the children are very effective, but sometimes we forget about that. So, we need to try to do that after, each prayer on a daily basis. It really works. It's been mentioned in the narration very clearly that pray for your children. Pray for all the issues related to your children. Some points remain. I just want to end this session with some narrations about the concept of Iffa. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says, مَا عُبِدَ اللَّهُ بِشَيْءٍ أَفْضَلْ مِنْ عِفَّةِ بَطْنٍ وَفَرْجٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not been worshipped by anything better than Iffa, referring to the significance of this concept. Iffatul batn, the chastity related to your stomach, meaning what you eat. I didn't explain about that, we didn't have time. And Iffatul farj, which is related to sexual desires. Zakatul Jamal al-Ifaf, this is a very famous narration about the concept of Iffa. If some people, they think that they are beautiful, Imam says that the zakat of beauty is to practice chastity. There is a zakat for everything. If someone is beautiful, man or woman, the zakat of that is to practice chastity. عِفُّ عَنْ نِسَاءِ النَّاسِ تَعِفُّ نِسَاءَكُمْ. This is a very interesting narration by one of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Again, a practical way for practicing chastity. This narration is addressing the men, but it can be vice versa as well. Addressing the men, Imam says that عِفُّ عَنْ نِسَاءِ النَّاسِ, practice chastity regarding the other women, the wives of other people. Meaning that, for example, do not look at non-mahram women, do not have any relation to them. So as men, if you practice chastity regarding other women, then the result is that تَعِفُّ نِسَاءُكُمْ, your wives would be able to practice chastity as well. So you should not expect them to practice chastity and yourself you are not ready to practice chastity. And the same is true about women as well. If you expect your husbands to practice chastity, then you should do it first. اشتد غضب الله على امرأة ذات بعل ملأت عينها من غير زوجها أو غير ذي محرم. This is one of the narrations about the significance of controlling the eyes for married women. So sometimes when people get married, they think that, controlling the eyes was for the time that we were single. No, this is not the case. The narration says that اشتد غضب الله, the wrath and anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very great, is very intense for امرأة ذات بعل, a married woman, who ملأت عينها, who fills her eyes by looking at non-mahram, of course in an illegal way. And for the details you can refer to the books of Islamic laws. For the reward for practicing chastity, we have many narrations. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, and this is for the men of course, مَنْ نَظَرَ إِلَىٰ إِمْرَأَةٍ. You know that in Islamic laws we are told that the first look is permissible, of course if it is unintentional. If someone looks at a woman, فَرَفَعَ بَصَرَهُ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ, then he looks at the sky, not to look at non-mahram, أو غمض بصره, or lower his gaze, then Allah يُحْغِبَهُ اللَّهُ إِيمَانًا يَجِدُ تَعْمَهُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him the faith that he tastes the sweetness of. Sometimes we recite the Quran, but we do not feel the sweetness of reciting. We supplicate, we do not feel the sweetness. Or we may do many other acts of worship, prayer, obligatory or recommended, but we do not feel this halawa, this sweetness of these acts of worship. So Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says that one of the ways is to practice chastity. Imam Ali alayhi salam, مَا الْمُجَاهِدُ الشَّهِيدُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ بَأَعْظَمَ أَجْرًا مِمَّنْ قَدَرَ فَعَلَ. So Quran and the narrations tell us that no one can be compared to a martyr, a shaheed. Here the narration, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, the reward of a shaheed is not more than a person who is able to commit a sin related to sexual desires, but they practice iffa. So if there is a person, he or she can commit sin, there is no limitation, but they practice chastity, then his reward or her reward is exactly like a shaheed or a martyr. لَكَادَ الْعَفِيفُ أَنْ يَكُونَ مَلَكًا مِنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Afif, a person who practices chastity, it is as if he or she is one of the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is in Nahj al-Balagha. And just the last narration, because we are going to listen to the poem as well. الحرفة مع الحفة غير من الغنى مع الفجور. This is one of the realities as well, that some people, as long as they are poor, they practice chastity. But as soon as they become rich, they abandon chastity. This is not, of course, for all people, but many times you see that some people, as soon as they become wealthy, they, reach some money, they, begin to abandon chastity. So the Imam says that poverty with chastity is much better than richness with al-fujur, not practicing chastity. So sometimes to have so much wealth might not be good for all the people. Allah knows the best. So sometimes if we ask for a prayer and it is not answered, we need to know that Allah knows the situation much better than us. There is this very famous narration that a man, he was very poor, but on a daily basis he was taking part in Salatul Jama'ah of the Prophet in the city of Medina. He did not have anything. Once he came to the Prophet, he said, I'm suffering, so as a Prophet, supplicate and pray for me so I can have a better life. The Holy Prophet did not want to pray for him, but the man insisted. So the Prophet prayed for him and gave him very little amount of money. He bought a sheep, and that was the money coming from the Prophet with so much blessing. Then he was able to have more sheep, a herd, and the number of the herds and sheep increased to the extent that he was not able to stay in the city of Medina anymore. He went somewhere outside the city of Medina. So he did not join the Salatul Jama'ah of the Prophet anymore, to the extent that when it was time for him to pay zakat, he said that no, I'm not going to pay zakat. This is an obligation. So the Holy Prophet, of course, was informed about this fact, and once just gave him a message that at least give the money back, the money that I gave you. And the man did so. And gradually he lost everything again, and he realized himself that it was not good for him to have all these properties. So sometimes for some people it might be better to have a moderate life, but with piety and chastity. I hope these 3 sessions have been beneficial, and inshallah we'll have other sessions to go to some more details about these 2 concepts. Thank you for joining. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Please kneel down.
Salawat. I'm a Muslim girl, happy and fine. On reaching puberty, chadar is mine. I'm a Muslim girl, happy and fine. On reaching puberty, chadar is mine. Some call it parda, baibui or veil. Some call it chadar, the Islamic veil. Some call it parda, baibui or veil. Some call it chadar, the Islamic veil. Wake up, O women, don't copy the West. Follow the Islamic, the true and the best. Wake up, O women, don't copy the West. Follow the Islamic, the true and the best. The Western is naked and a filthy way, where women is a doll for a man to play. The Western is naked and a filthy way, where women is a doll for a man to play. Wake up, O women, and live for God. Be ready for death and meeting your Lord. Wake up, O women, and live for God. Be ready for death and meeting your Lord. Salawat.